Republicans. Joining us now is Dave Dulio, Director of the Center for Civic Engagement and Political Science Professor at Oakland University. Good morning, Dave. How are you?
I'm well, guys. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
And would you agree that 6 months ago the Democrats were going to hold on to the Senate?
Boy, I would, and I would even say as recently as 5 weeks ago, it was looking really good for Democrats. You know, there are prognosticators out there who work with a bunch of data and sort of funnel all of that into models and algorithms about that sort of predict results or give us percentage chances of one party holding the chamber or another. And 538 is one of the best ones out there. But they're not the only one. But 538, as recently as September 20th, had the Democratic chances of holding the Senate at 71%, right? And now they're down to 54. So it's really shifted in recent weeks.
So what is happening? Is it just these few key races in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona that have changed, or is there a change in how people are feeling out there?
Well, I think I'm one who believes that you can never overestimate the idiosyncratic twists and turns in a particular race, right? Whether that's Georgia and some revelations or attacks, depending on how you look at it, against Herschel Walker in the last month or so. Certainly the Pennsylvania race with Oz and Fetterman and the debate that was just held. We don't have any good polling that's post-debate yet, but that's going to be fascinating to watch, given Mr. Fetterman's performance in that debate. But aside from those idiosyncratic campaign effects, I think what we're seeing is a shift in the national mood, right? And really a couple things happening. Number one, Republicans are coalescing around their candidates. And some of those races, I think, you look at the one in Wisconsin, Ron Johnson appears to be doing fine. J.D. Vance looking to hold that seat in Ohio, looking better than they were a few months ago. And that's happening here in Michigan too, with Republicans coalescing around our top of the ticket candidates. But also really just another refocus on fundamentals in American politics that make it a bad year for Democrats. And I'll just give you two. One, President Biden's low approval ratings and the state of the economy. So you put all that together, and it's not at all surprising to see that the chances of Republicans gaining control of the Senate are going up and looking much better than they were even a month ago.
Yeah, you looked at states where it could switch. It could flip the seats, Arizona being one of them, and then, of course, the seat in Georgia, which I want you to talk about, because Herschel Walker, Raphael Warnock in Georgia, they both had some controversies, in a personal nature. Walker with these accusations that he's now paid for another abortion in 1993. Warnock accused of running over his wife's foot and some, personal marital spats on that side. Aside from all of that personal stuff, we have the Real Clear Politics average putting Warnock up by just 0.5%. But then Herschel Walker ahead by 2 points in this latest poll. So this, if it's that close in Georgia, the reason why I want to ask you this, because this may not be decided on November the 8th. The way it works in Georgia, this could go to a runoff into December.
Absolutely, which is what we saw in 2020, right? Which is frankly why we have the Senate, the Senate results that we are facing today, right? With Democrats 50-50. If Republicans would have won just one of those Georgia Senate runoffs, because there by chance happened to be two of them, and Republicans lost both in part because of President Trump's messaging between Election Day in November and then that runoff 2 months later, right? It was one about election fraud and election security, and he really doubled down on his base not showing up at the polls in that runoff, and it really hurt Republicans.
What do you think is going to happen in the Pennsylvania race? I mean, I'm sure you watched at least maybe a part of the debate. I know you were at the one here at Oakland University that same night between our governor and Tudor Dixon. But Mehmet Oz and John Fetterman going at it, and it was a really hard thing to watch for John Fetterman, yet he's raised so much money after that debate. What do you make of that? Where do you see that landing?
Yeah, I think it was. I think that's a really good way to put it. It was hard to watch. You feel bad for John Fetterman being put into that position, and you wonder, why his campaign staff would have agreed to it. He was, of course, facing heavy pressure to debate and resisted, and I think that they knew why. And it was tough to watch. It was, like I said, I feel bad for the guy, but I think we'll know in a week or so what the effect is coming out of that debate. And I think it's tough to expect people to change their mind from Fetterman and say, oh my gosh, I'm not voting for him, I'm voting for Oz. Just because they have such differing views, right? Mm-hmm. But what it might really do is affect turnout. And folks who are saying, boy, I want to go vote in the governor's race, but boy, I don't know if I can vote for Fetterman. I can't vote for Oz, but I don't know if I can vote for Fetterman. So maybe they just skip that race, right? So, yeah. and that can have just as big of an impact on the outcome. So I would be surprised if we didn't see that race tilt slightly toward Oz in the next week or so.
I think John Fetterman's problem is going to be that independents are not going to be happy with the fact that he wasn't honest with how serious this was when it first happened, and he hasn't really turned over all of his medical records. He just has a doctor saying that he's okay to run. I wanted to ask you in our last minute here, I haven't heard much about the Democrats going after Donald Trump endorsements anymore. Has that argument run its course that if Donald Trump supports you, you're going to be in big trouble, or is that still out there? I'm just not seeing it as much.
Oh, I think it's out there. I think that we're just in a market, Kevin, where we don't see much of that. I think it's likely to be a big factor over in West Michigan with Mr. Gibbs running against Hillary Scholten in that 3rd congressional district here. I think in the Senate races that we've been talking about, you look for maybe that Arizona race for it to matter, and maybe Mr. Kelly to squeak it out there, Senator Kelly to squeak it out for that, and who knows, maybe in some of those other races. But I think those effects are already baked in, and the effect that it's going to have is already being measured.
Yeah. Well, see, 4 toss-up races in the U.S. Senate. Appreciate your perspective. As always, Dave Dulio, director of the Civic Force Center for Civic Engagement and Political Science professor at Oakland University. Dave Dulio, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
You too. 800-859-0957, 800-859-0957.